What makes school school?
The educational system is made up of lots of complex factors, and the contribution of historical significance is immeasurable. From ancient Egypt to the present day, school systems have changed in every aspect.
Where once we had apprentices and scholars, we now have public schools and drinking fountains.
Even today, the world's school systems are incredibly dynamic.
A 3 hours travel on a plane can mean a few hours difference in a child's school day.
The heart of education remains the same despite thousands of years and miles. Why? Let's find out. All right, so there's a lot of effects of school, and I think one of the really important ones that's really relevant to people today is the effect of the mental health of the students.
Yeah, because I mean, school, you go through a lot, especially at different stages of life. Like you can be, when I came up to high school for the first time, I was 13.
Yeah.
So I mean, as like an early birthday or late in the year, it took a toll on me. I mean, I wasn't really like maybe as mentally prepared as I thought I would have been. And I mean, now I'm 16, so I have more of like an understanding of high school, and I feel much better. But everyone goes through like their high school career differently, and for me, it was a struggle at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is the transition from middle school to high school, because there's a lot more independence and a lot more space in high school. Everything is a lot less personal, and it's easy, I think, to get lost in that. And that's a really rough transition, and I think especially for freshmen and everything, that takes a really big toll. And it's also a lot of social change. Like people have different classes, there's new electives, and friend groups fall apart. And I think that's also, that could really take you down.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, as a person, when I came to here, I'd say like 2 or 3 like really close friends. And then freshman year, I was very antisocial. I was very to myself. And that, I mean, it changed a lot of my mental health. I mean, I didn't have much people to go to and talk to. 10th grade, it became better, and then this year it's been much, much better for me. I've been able to like reach out more. I've been able to understand how to talk to people more, and yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing is the workload difference, because when you're in middle school, it's like, I don't know, I did maybe an hour of homework, every day, but then I got to freshman year, and it was insane. I would spend, 3 hours doing homework every day. And I think that changes not only in one school, but across the whole world, even in the East and the West.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a video that can go ahead and show like some of the aspects of school as well.
No room for passions and interests. We have an extremely standardized system where each child must learn the same thing at the same time in the same way as everyone else. This doesn't respect the basic fact of being human, that each of us is unique and different in our own way. We all have different passions and interests. And the key to fulfillment in life is to find your passion. But do the schools of today help our children find and develop their passion? There seems to be no room in the current education system for the most important questions in a child's life. What am I good at? What do I want to do in life? How do I fit into this world? The system doesn't seem to care. There are so many greatly talented people who failed in the traditional school system. Fortunately, they were able to overcome these failures, but not everyone can. We have no measure for how much talent, how much potential goes unrecognized in the current system.
All right, I mean, and to continue on the video, I mean, in school, you have to go ahead and you have to try to like find a passion early on before you go off to, I mean, some people don't even go off to college, but you have to find something that you want to do in the future. And I mean, that's one thing a lot of people get trapped up on, because you have to deal with all these like grades. You want to keep your grades high. You want to focus on like in-school core classes. I mean, some people don't have the chance for extracurricular activities because of the fact that they want to go ahead and focus on keeping their grades so high. And that was something for me, especially this year. I sacrificed a lot of extracurricular activities I want to do because I want to be keeping my grades high, because I want to go to, a good college and keep a good future for myself.
Yeah, I think that is really important, because high school is a time where you can try out new things. Like, it's preparing you to go into the real world. So I think you should be able to do more extracurricular activities, because the effect of that, the effect of the youth going into society and what they figure out is extremely significant, because they always say, oh, today's youth is tomorrow's future. And so I think the effect of education on society and the overall level of knowledge that everyone has is really important, from like politics to just your everyday, run-of-the-mill people.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I mean, you go through 7 hours of grueling school every single day too. And I mean, some people, they have it rougher than others,
Yeah, and I think, again, of going back to the society, is the golden ages. Like, so when you look back on history and you look all the golden ages when everything was great, one thing that you always see was education. When they say golden age, they say education as the sign of a healthy society. There's inventions, there's people being very learned. And I think that really is significant. So, I think I have a video here showing how much of an effect education really can have on society.
After all, education was an important pillar of Aztec society. In fact, attending these institutions was compulsory. This idea of universal schooling is actually quite modern. There were several different types of schools available. These were separated into two groups, one for boys and one for girls. The boys were educated on matters related to their various societal roles and would take up residence in the school dormitories. The girls were mostly educated on matters related to the domestic sphere and would return home in the evenings. Past this gender divide, there would be another form of separation based on class. The Kalmikak was for elites, while the Telpushkali was for commoners. The Kalmikak was a religious temple where youths would be taught to occupy the highest positions of authority in society. Admission was generally reserved for those of noble birth, but it is believed that boys from the merchant class or gifted commoners might be received as well.
So I think that video is very important, because it shows not only that education goes all the way back through time and history, but it also shows, like we were saying, the effects on society and how, especially in ancient times, school had a really big part in gender roles. You could see how the girls were, learning certain things and the boys were learning other things. And I think things like that and how it impacts society is really relevant to the youth of today.
Yeah, and I mean, I think back then, because there wasn't like as many jobs as there are now, it allowed people to also be a lot more creative and had to go ahead and invent things and figure things out for themselves. As compared to now, I mean, we have literally robots taking over our jobs now, so we have to go ahead and, deal with all that. But it allowed for us to be like inventive. We had to go ahead and figure things out. We had to go ahead and create new jobs and create new things,
Yeah, and I think another thing of that is the location of where you are also contributes a lot to that, because school here and what we have to figure out here is very different than what they have to figure out in the Middle East, for example. Like there's women who cannot attend school, going back to the gender roles, and so there's different challenges to overcome. Maybe it's AI for us, maybe it's gender differences there.
That's very true, yeah. And I mean, I have a little image that, goes ahead and shows more of what we're talking about school-wise with,
Yeah, so I think that's really important. So if you got like a place over here, and we have to focus on things like studying, like in this image.
A lot of studying, a lot of focus. You have to go ahead and dedicate a lot of hours to go ahead and make sure you keep everything up. Me personally, last night I stayed like 3 hours. I had to do some social studies work. I studied for my language, Spanish. I had to study for math. You have to focus on all these things in order to be able to allow your mind to be able to be inventive and go out and do things. Yeah.
And I think that's probably a continuity throughout history. I mean, in places like the ancient Middle East under the Islamic Empire, there was a lot of, they were really well known for producing these amazing inventions like soap and the compass and all of these things. So if you think about it, it probably was really really grueling for all students throughout history. And we go say today, we're like, oh my goodness, this is so hard. How could we ever survive this? But then people as far back as ancient China, and they were learning about these Confucian ideologies and these very rigorous schools.
They had it difficult as well.
Yeah, they also, so I think it's really a continuity throughout history, and through this is really important because they come important inventions, important thinkers, and I think I have an image here that sort of shows that. But so this picture is called the School of Athens, and it's very well known. And so what it shows basically is all of these great thinkers. This was painted in the Renaissance.
Okay.
And so you can see all sorts of ancient Greek philosophers, mathematicians. You have some Arabic, like really important thinkers. And that shows what an impact they had on society because, they were so significant back in the day. They impact all the way through time. People in the Renaissance were painting them, and now here we are today talking about them.
Yeah, but like you said, we literally learn about them in class nowadays, modern day, because of how important they were back then. They influenced the way that we learn, they influenced the way that we think now. And so we take their ideas and we just imply them in our daily learning,
Yeah, I think that's really important because what we do is we learn from history. If we didn't have anything to build off of, we would have to start from scratch.
It'd be a whole...
It'd be a whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think as much as we complain about school, though I think there are better ways to manage it and there are better school systems than others, it really is important.
Yeah.
And
because we have stuff to go based off of instead of having to deal with going from scratch.
Yeah. So I think there's also, when society is as a whole more educated, there's a difference.
Yeah.
People are more worldly, they know more and more about the world, the more they can internalize that for themselves and know what's going on. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And I think I have a little source here that goes ahead and shows, a spot where you can learn more about school. It's called Turnbridge, and it also talks about a lot about the mental health aspect of, dealing with school. A lot of people, like I said, me, myself personally, I struggled freshman and sophomore year a lot. So, mental health was a very, very big thing for me. I didn't really have anyone to go to for it.
Yeah.
Obviously now, as I've gotten to learn my way around the school, it's gone much, much better, and I've been able to go ahead and cope with it more. But yeah. People go through it differently. The different high school, they go through it differently.
Yeah. And speaking of going through things differently, like as we were saying before, I have a source here showing how different it is, for example, in the Middle East. And there's a huge, where the Taliban is not letting women participate in school. And so my source would show about, more information about that because it's important to stay informed and stay educated.
Yeah. And it's the sad reality because, like I said, it's like you said actually, it's very different over here, like in the say, for example, like the Middle East with the gender roles because women aren't allowed to do things that men are, and they're not allowed to go out, literally go out. They're forced to kind of stay home. Yeah.
So I think we're going to start wrapping this up.
Yeah, with the effects of education are felt around the world and throughout.
But yeah, I think they really are felt throughout the world and
and throughout history. And from ancient Mesoamerica to modern day, education has changed in unimaginable ways.
Yet there's still aspects that remain the same and some that remain imperfect. Gender and class divides remain in educational systems to varying degrees.
So, the newer influence of education been for better or for the worse? Kids waking up so early to the point where their brains can not fully function as good as they can be.
There's so much to learn about education from many different perspectives.
From being a woman from the Middle East to being a rich kid in a private school here in America. Opportunity ranges, but not everyone gets that choice. That shows how everyone has fully different perspectives of life and with school.
Thank you for tuning in to Warwick Valley TV's education segment here at the greatest place on earth.
From
NBC News World Headquarters in New York. This is NBC Nightly News with Lester.
Hey guys, it's me, Logan.
You have arrived at your destination.